Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to this session. It's called Mastering the Art of Communication. My name is Sandy Cormack. I'm an organizational development consultant and corporate trainer. I help develop strategic plans. I help manage and develop talent. And today we're going to focus on communication skills, mastering the art of communication. And communication is an art. And there are a lot of things that you can learn about it, and we're going to cover a whole lot of those over the course of this training. This entire training channel is devoted to your success as an individual. Its purpose is to help professionals like you gain the skills essential for career success. And to that end, I've made this totally free to use and totally ad-free. I know that people don't like ads interrupting their experience. I have a number of recommendations so that you can get the most out of this training. My first big recommendation is I highly recommend you download and print the student manual. It's in the description below. There's a link to it. You can go and download it. It's about 116 pages. It's got the narrative that supports these charts. It's got all the activities that I'm going to refer to throughout the training. You're really not going to get as much as you could out of this training unless you download this manual. So I highly recommend you do that. Also, if you get value from this training, I'm going to ask you to like, subscribe, and share. I want you to subscribe because, I'm going to be putting a lot of other training on this channel. I want you to get notified whenever I do. The more training you get, the more successful you'll be as a corporate professional. And if you do get some value out of it, and you know people who might also get value out of it, who it might help, please share it. It's very important that as many people who you know who could benefit from this training are informed about it. And to that end, I ask you to share. And to keep this channel ad-free, I have one request. As you see, I do accept donations. And if you get something of value out of this, I do ask you to support the channel. It helps me keep it ad-free, and it helps me devote the resources I need to keep this channel going on. And in order to facilitate that, I do have some gifts I want to offer to those who donate. I am a big believer in personality assessments. All of my training is infused with personality assessments so that you can really personalize the training and take the training and make it apply to your unique personality, your unique set of strengths. And in order to help make this training more successful, I have integrated some personality assessments into the training. And so for those who do donate, I will give you the personality assessment that I primarily use in this, and that is the Disc Plus. I give that in exchange for any donation. So if you donate $10, $15, $20, you will be able to go to a questionnaire, take the assessment, and then download the results. And you can have those results handy as you go through the training so that you will get the most out of this. It's a $197 value. I'm going to give it to you for whatever you care to donate. And for those who donate $67 or more, I also give an additional personality assessment called the Attribute Index, which is about 10 times more powerful than the Disc Plus. It really gets into your thinking attributes and your core strengths. And along with that, I will invite you to a live Zoom webinar where we will go over the results of these assessments. And this is a $497 value. I'll provide that for donations of $67 or more. And if you would like to make arrangements for this to be more widely used in your organization, to where you have a lot of people who need to take the assessment, just contact me. My contact information is in the student manual, and you can arrange for some special circumstances. We'll get together, we'll talk, we'll see what your needs are, and we'll take care of that. To get us started in the course overview, I'd like to frame communication skills in what I think are the 10 essential skills you need. This is a set of 10 skills. This might not apply equally to everyone, but in general, these are the 10 skills that I see everyone should have, whether you're just a professional, whether you want to go into management in leadership roles, um, whatever. And these skills are communication, self-confidence, teamwork, coachability, adaptability, problem solving, networking, work ethic, time management, and emotional intelligence. And as I said, today we're focusing on communication skills. But just because we're focusing on communication skills doesn't mean that we're not going to get some additional benefits in the other areas. As a matter of fact, communication skills is linked to many of these that you see here. So by increasing your communication skills, you're also going to have a positive impact on your self-confidence. It's going to increase teamwork ability greatly. You're going to be a better problem solver. You're going to increase your emotional intelligence. It's just going to be overall better for you. And so that's why I frame this in terms of, the benefit of communication as opposed to the rest of them here. And these are also some of the training that I'm going to be adding to this channel as it's developed. Here's an overview of what we're going to cover during this course. These are some of the learning objectives that I have for you. I'm going to help you identify common communication problems that may be holding you back. We're going to learn about communication basics and about common barriers to communication. Getting awareness of that will really help you navigate through this course. You're going to learn how to define your unique communication style. Everyone has a communication style, sort of a natural style, that's a result of their personality. You're going to learn how to define it better and also learn how to interface and blend with people who have different communication styles than you do. You're going to develop skills to ask questions to give you the information you need. Questions are a primary communication skill that will help you in a number of areas. If you learn to ask good questions, it's going to make you a much better professional. You're going to learn what your nonverbal messages are telling others, because things like body language make up the majority of communication. And it's helpful to understand what body language is and how it's used. You're going to develop skills to listen actively and empathetically. Listening skills, along with asking questions, go hand in hand. Having great listening skills will, again, make you a better professional. You're going to enhance your ability to handle difficult situations, and you're going to learn to deal with situations assertively. So that's a lot. We have a very aggressive set of learning objectives. So let's go ahead and get on. First things first, though, there's a section in the student manual that I'd like you to complete before we go on. It's called "Why Did You Take This Course?" You go in, there's a little place for you to put your a paragraph, write a paragraph as to why did you take the course, and also complete the pre-course assignment, and then we'll get started. So I want you to pause the video here, complete that, the pre-course assignment, and answer why you took this course, and then we'll get started. So pause it right here. Okay, now that you've done that, let's get going. Here's an overview of the agenda. I break this up into 12 sessions. This first video is probably going to cover the first 6. We're in the middle of the course overview. We're going to go to communication basics, talk about communication barriers. We're going to grow our self-awareness. Self-awareness is the one thing that I tell every professional that you need in order to be a success in your career. If you have self-awareness, that's most of the battle. And then in session 5 and 6, we're going to learn to ask questions and enhance our listening skills. In the next video, we're going to talk about communication styles, learn about body language, learn how to create a positive self-image, learn how to eliminate judgment, which deals with all the biases and preconceptions and beliefs that may stand in the way of your effective communication. We're going to learn some techniques for the workplace, and then we're going to go into assertiveness. So let's get started by talking about some communication basics here. Everyone has their own definition on what they feel constitutes a skilled communicator. So I want you to take a few minutes and write down your definition of a skilled communicator. Pause the video now, do that, and then come back, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so hopefully you've done that, and we have a good working definition of a skilled communicator. I want to share with you my definition of a skilled communicator. A skilled communicator listens to you and connects with you in a way that makes you more successful. And what do I mean by that? Well, a skilled communicator understands that helping you be more successful is the key to effective communication. Whether I'm helping you solve a problem, whether I'm informing you, giving you information that you need in order to perform your job, in order to reduce conflict, in order to manage conflict. Communication skills are paramount. So a skilled communicator, first of all, listens to you. They understand with you. They seek to put themselves in your shoes and sort of blend with you. And they will, through that, they connect with you. They establish a rapport. And in this, learning to ask the right questions, and be a better listener, and put your problem-solving skills to good use, you connect with the person in a way that makes them more successful. So you're helping their needs. And if you help them fulfill their needs, if you help them complete what they're trying to do, then you will be a skilled communicator. So that's my working definition. So most of the communication basics section in here is activities. And so this next activity, again, I would like you to pause the video and think of a time when you are at your best. What do you do and how do you act as a communicator? Think about that. Pause the video and then come back. Okay, my insight on this is that when I'm a good communicator, when I'm at my best as a communicator, I'm succeeding at that definition that I just gave you. I'm giving you what you need to succeed. I'm helping you get to the root cause of your problems, and I'm helping you come up with a solution. And I act in a way that is supportive. I try to support what you need, and I don't interject my own needs in with that. I focus on what you're trying to accomplish. In order to do that, I ask a lot of probing questions, and I listen to you, and I help get to the root of the issue and help you craft a way forward. Now think of a time when you are at your worst as a communicator. What do you do and how do you act? Pause the video and then we'll come back. Okay, I had to really think hard the first time I saw this one. What do you do and how do you act when you are at your worst as a communicator? And in my history, my experience, when I'm at my worst as a communicator, it's usually when I'm not face-to-face with somebody, interacting with them. It's when I rely on things like email. And when I rely on things like email as a sole form of communication, it's always not as effective as it needs to be. So there are some forms of communication that are appropriate for certain things and inappropriate for others. So when I'm using a mode of communication in a way that it's least effective, that it's not appropriate, that's when I'm at my worst as a communicator. And I have to continuously remind myself, don't rely on the easy things like email, when a phone call or a face-to-face meeting can be a lot more effective. Now think of someone who you know is an excellent communicator. Go to this activity and fill this out and then come back to me. And Answer these questions. What makes that person stand out to you? What things are they doing that we could learn from? And do you see things in them that they could learn to make themselves even better at communicating? Pause the video now and go and address this and then come back. Okay, especially with that last bullet. Even though you're a good communicator, an excellent communicator, there are going to be some things that you can learn. And after you go through this training, you're going to know things that 99% of people don't know. So think about the people who could benefit from this training to learn to make themselves even better communicators, and be sure and share this with them. Now, the next activity in this section is about identifying common communication barriers. We've moved on to the session on communication barriers, and this is a very involved session. Communication barriers are things that we encounter every day that get in our way, that impede our effective communication. And here's a list of things, and these are also in your workbook. Experience, emotions, background, attitudes, culture, subject knowledge, prejudice, mood, wording, education, noise level, ambiguity, perceptions, and nonverbal messages. Now, in your workbook, there is an example of each one of these. I want you to go through each one of these in the workbook and add some things that constitute communication barriers that you've experienced in each one of these categories. So pause the video now, and then when we come back, I'll give you some of my perspectives. Okay. Of these different communication barriers, I've encountered many. I think one of the ones that I find is a big stumbling block is emotions. Because a lot of times we let our emotions rule the day. And because of this, we speak from our emotions. And if the emotions are positive, this can be a real benefit. If the emotions are negative, they can be a huge communication barrier. So a lot of my interaction with individuals often involves first diffusing the emotions. If we can diffuse the emotions, then we can have effective communication and then get past that barrier. Another thing that I've encountered, because I've worked in the past with a lot of professionals who have doctorate, PhDs, is subject knowledge. And there is something that comes along with subject knowledge, if you're an expert in a field, that definitely impedes how you interact with others. It's sort of what I'll call like an academic ego. And a lot of times a person with a PhD won't want to communicate with you as an equal because they feel like you're not as competent as they are. So establishing that connection, establishing where can I appeal to them in such a way that I show that I am competent enough to have the conversation that we need to have. Getting past that barrier can often be difficult, and it often involves proving yourself. But if you can get past that barrier, then things like subject knowledge cease to be big impediments, and you can move forward effectively. So now let's apply some of the answers that you came up with here. This next activity allows you to apply what we've worked with thus far. What are some of the things that can be done in your organization to communicate better? Are these physical or mental activities? Are these individual or team activities? If your organization were a zoo, what kind of inhabitants would it have? That's going to be a fun one. Pause the video now. Go back and fill that up, and then I'll give you some of my perspective on this. All right, so one of the things that I focus on with relation to organizational issues is team performance. Team activities, to me, are the best way to break down communication barriers within a team. If we have these team activities, if we get together and we work on these things at the same time, we gain what I call team awareness, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But achieving this team awareness is a huge benefit in eliminating the barriers to communication which exist within your team. Another activity here is called being mindful. What are some work-related resources that we take for granted? What are some of the dangers if we take resources, including people, for granted? And what can we gain by paying attention to these things? So put this on pause and answer that, and then come back and I'll give you my perspective here. All right. Some of the work-related resources that I feel we take for granted are the ones that make communication easier. Like, for instance, email or texting. Email has definitely made us more productive. But if you take email as a cure-all to your communication needs, then you become a less effective communicator. And I've alluded to this before. And if we pay attention to this, what we'll learn is, here are the different forms of communication that I use, and here's what they're best used for. And making sure that we don't take these work-related resources related to communication and use them improperly, that we use them for their best purpose. And I want to conclude this session, this particular topic of communication barriers, by talking about what I think is the biggest barrier to effective communication that affects everyone, and that is lack of self-awareness. Self-awareness is understanding who you are at a fundamental level, understanding your strengths and blind spots. And if we don't understand our strengths and blind spots at a very deep level, we lack self-awareness. We don't understand our communication style that comes from this self-awareness, and we can't see how our blind spots are getting in the way of effective communication. Now, if you take a group of individuals that lack self-awareness and you put them on a team, if we don't understand one another on a personal level, we lack team awareness. So we first lack self-awareness, then we lack team awareness. And lack of team awareness creates additional barriers to communication. And as a result of this, we can't give each other what we need to be successful. This final activity about questioning your competence looks at your self-belief. So I would like you to go through this and answer all of these questions one by one. There are 10 questions, I believe, this set and this set. Go through all of these questions, answer them. There's no right or wrong answers. There's no subjective or objective scoring on this. Just answer them and get some insight that'll help your self-awareness about your competence, and then come back. Okay, so if you've completed this, hopefully you've gained some more insight as to where you are in how you feel about your competence. And we're going to work on things to help you with this as we go through the training. Because to develop competence, you need to get better at communicating. And if you get better at communicating, you will, it has sort of a positive feedback effect on your confidence. So if you're not confident in your communication skills, there are some things that we can do to help you develop that confidence. One is fake it until you make it. And this is sort of the first effort at acquiring communication skills, is simply to, fake it in such a way that you sound like you know what you're talking about until you've acquired what you need to do. And you've probably encountered people who will do this. They will make some claims or promises that they're not sure how they're going to keep, and then they figure out how to do it, and then they follow through. That's really what this is about. One of the things we're going to learn as we go through this is how to be better prepared in our communications. If we know we're going to have a critical communication with somebody, how to be better prepared for that communication so that it has a better chance of ending up successful. Learn how to relax. Don't be critical about yourself, and what you're going to learn today will really help you in that. Be very consistent with your communications. And then this last one is something that I do in all of my training sessions, and that is experience personality assessments. This is one of the best things that you can do to develop confidence. The reason we use personality assessments is they help achieve self-awareness. They give you deep insight into your personal strengths and blind spots. And then if you take them in relation to being on a team, they help achieve team awareness. You learn the strengths and blind spots of others. And through this, you learn various things that you have in common, where they have strengths where you don't, where you have strengths where they don't, and how you can effectively collaborate better. So this is sort of the bedrock, fundamental thing that I do to help teams perform better. And as a result of this, it will reveal your strengths and blind spots, some of which you never knew that you had. It'll help you establish your personal brand. Establishing your personal brand is extremely important as a professional. I'm going to have a training session devoted just to how to establish your personal brand. You're going to develop your personal development path. It's a little redundant, but what it means is you're going to learn, here are my strengths, here are my blind spots. These blind spots can really get in the way, so I'm going to have to learn how to manage them. And I'm going to need to learn some additional skills in order to help me manage these areas. And it's going to provide insight into your unique communication style. We've got a whole section in this training devoted to that. Here's an example of how a personality assessment can help you in your communication. The one that I use here, the Disc Plus, it has a page devoted to informing others how to communicate better with you. It's called Communication Insights for Others. And it tells other people the things to do to communicate effectively with you and the things not to do. So if you can imagine being in a team setting and everybody has this report for everyone else. Everyone looks at this communication insights for everybody on your team. It would really help you and enable you to effectively communicate better within your team. Another example is the attribute index, which is the more powerful assessment that I talked about, which looks into how you think. And one of the reports in the attribute index takes a look at your communication skills. It looks at how you tend to evaluate what's said, how you understand attitudes of others, how free you are from prejudices, your sense of timing, and how you are at handling rejection. And these are many things that contribute to your fundamental natural style in communications. So understanding this grows your self-awareness, and it gives you sort of a roadmap on how you can be a more effective communicator. This is why I recommend that everybody use personality assessments in their essential skills development. And this is how self-awareness makes you a better communicator. Understanding how your personality influences your natural communication style. Okay? If you understand your natural communication style, you will understand the things that you are doing effectively and maybe the things that you aren't doing as effectively as you need to. And then by understanding how others want to be communicated with, you can learn powerful skills to bridge the gap. You can learn how to blend with others more effectively. All right. We are now jumping into the two, what I consider in this session to be the two most important aspects of this training. Asking good questions and being a good listener. So I consider these, along with self-awareness, to be foundational skills in being an effective, excellent communicator. And what I'm going to give you is essentially a library of questions that will help you develop your questioning skills. And this is a very divergent exercise. In other words, I'm going to give you a lot of question examples, and I'm going to ask you to come up with a lot of questions examples that are more fitted for what you do and the type of situations you find yourself in. But I think it's going to be important for you to pick out, a short list of questions that you're going to need to use on a regular basis. And hopefully at the end of this session, you'll be able to do that. That'll help you to plan the questions prior to meetings or conversations to ensure that your questions have thought and depth to them. There are really two major types of questions: closed questions and open questions. Closed questions can be answered with a simple yes or no, or with a specific piece of data. What is 2 plus 2? 4. That's a closed question. Closed questions, by their very nature, restrict possible responses. They require very little effort on either person's part. At most, you might have to research to get a factual answer, a factual piece of data in order to answer it properly. These can be used to close down a conversation, and they tend to get overused because of how easy they are. And they can also, as a downside, can lead us to make assumptions, and assumptions are barriers. So closed questions have their uses, but in interacting with others, I would like you to start using more open questions. Open questions can be used to get information, focus conversations, solicit opinions, and gain consensus. Unlike closed questions, open questions do not have a set yes or no answer. They encourage the person to expand, to think, to give more complicated answers. So here are some types of open-ended questions. A leading question. This is when you want to get the person you're talking to focus on something very specific. Don't you just love the way vanilla ice cream smells? My mother used to have a great leading question that she would use with my father. Whenever my mother and I were having an argument, generally about my freedom, I'd want to go out, stay out late. We'd have a disagreement, and she would go to my father. And instead of saying, "What do you think?" she would say, "You don't think that Sandy needs to be out past 11 o'clock tonight, do you?" So she was making very clear the answer that she wanted to get. It was an endless source of frustration. But that is an example of a leading question, one that I'd rather forget. Rhetorical questions. Do I look like I care? Do you really want me to answer that? That's another type of open question. What we're going to focus on more in this training are probing questions, and they can help you investigate situations and problems in a lot more detail. Before we get into probing questions, this is a general probing question, and I like to make a point of this. The most powerful question that you can ask anyone is why. Why helps you get to the root cause of the situation. It establishes rapport. If you can get answers to the question why, it makes connections. It helps you make connections. It gives you some real insight into the person. Why did you become an engineer? Why did you enter the medical profession? Well, why does this particular situation align with your values? And it also helps shine the light on the solution. Asking why can help you get to the root cause, and when you get to the root cause, it tends to make the solution to the problem a lot more clear. So now we're going to talk a lot about probing questions. Probing questions are the ones that help you dig deeper into the situation. When you use probing questions, you get others involved and participating, and that's what you want. You get important information out on the table, information that wouldn't be achieved if you were just getting yes or no type answers. Probing questions force you to listen because they're going to, if you're successful, the person you're talking to is going to be giving you a lot of valuable information. And it helps improve communication on both sides of the table. So we're going to get into some complexity of probing questions here. And the first thing we're going to look at is 5 different ways to probe. You can ask the open question. You can pause, giving the person time to elaborate on their answer. Even if they stop, if you pause, that pause might give them the incentive to continue with that answer and provide more information. You can respond with a reflective or mirroring question or paraphrasing. A reflective question is like this. Somebody says, well, this is the problem. And you say, okay, so do I understand that the problem, from your perspective, the problem is this? And you just repeat right back to them what they said. Paraphrasing involves something a little different. Paraphrasing involves putting sort of your take on the problem, rewording it in such a way that you feel helps get to the root of the problem. And that's a very effective communication tool that we're going to explore in a little bit. And then you can end a probing question session with a summary question, something that gathers everything that you've been talking about together and sort of, puts a bow on it, summarizes everything that you've covered. Now, in your workbook, there is an activity related to probing questions. And what I've got are 4 categories of probing questions: clarification, completeness and correctness, determining relevance, and drilling down. And in each one of these, there is an example or 2 of questions that you can use in each one of the categories. What I'd like you to do is to complete this activity by adding some of your own questions that you would use in each of these categories that are unique to what you do. So pause the video and do that, and then I'll come back and add some of my takes on this. Okay, hopefully this really started getting you thinking about probing questions. Of these 4 categories, the one that I rely on the most is drilling down, and that should be no surprise to you because of the things that I've been talking about thus far. Drilling down is, to me, the real enabler. It really helps me in my communication because drilling down provides really massive clarification. It shines a light on the solution. It creates rapport. It makes connections. It helps us get on the same sheet of music. And it also helps us influence the person we're talking to. Because if we can help them redefine their problem by drilling down in a way that they hadn't thought about before, we've done a great service to them. As you're examining a problem in interacting with a person, I want to define 3 levels of inquiry. And this is the area in the workbook that gives you the most, raw material. It gives you a large list of questions in each one of these categories to help you come up with your strategies at each one of these levels. The first level is called pure inquiry. And with pure inquiry, the questions do not presuppose a problem. The focus is what's going on and not why it is going on. The goal is full disclosure. So if you come to me with a problem, I'm going to start asking general baselining questions. I want to get a picture on what is the situation right now. I'm not going to dig yet. I want to get a very clear understanding of the current situation. And in doing so, I'm also building trust and rapport because I'm listening. And I can use many of the different types of probing questions that we've talked about, but take a look at the ones in the workbook. Those will give you a really good place to start with this. The next level, after we've baselined and established what's going on, is diagnostic inquiry. Diagnostic inquiry helps us analyze content, but it doesn't insert content ideas, suggestions, advice, or opinions yet. You are still exploring, but what you're doing now is you're digging. You are starting to analyze the situation by getting more information. Now, this activity, the diagnostic part of this inquiry, is where you start now influencing your client's mental processes by deliberately focusing on issues other than the ones the client chose to report in telling the story. Your questioning is going to bring out additional facts, additional factors, additional insights. And these are things that the client might not have thought of had you not been asking the right questions. So you are now influencing them, and this is a good thing. They don't influence the content of the story necessarily, but they focus attention on new and important things that the client might not have considered in the first place. And then finally, confrontive inquiry. This is now where you insert your own ideas and expertise. So now you can say, now that you feel like you've gotten to the root of the problem, you can start to shine lights on some potential solutions. Have you thought about this? Have you tried this? Have you talked to this person? Helping them come to an effective solution. And it's this level that we can really majorly influence our customers' thinking and perspective. And in each of these three, there's a really good list of questions. And I'm going to want you to refer to that here in an exercise coming up. But what we're doing here in general is we're going through sort of a three-step process. We're opening the customer, we're extracting their view, we're syncing with the customer, we're engaging with their perspective, and then we are helping them reframe by creating a new, customer mindset. If we're very successful at this, in going through this process, we've accomplished several things. We've influenced their thinking, we've created rapport, we've established ourselves as a valuable expert and somebody who can help them. And they're going to come back to you time and time again to help you, or to get your help with their problems, because now they trust you and they trust your ability. And you've established rapport with them. And they're going to refer you to other people to help them. Okay? Do you see the powerful benefit of this 3 levels of inquiry process? I hope you do, because it can be transformational. Now, there's one activity in this session that I would like you to complete, and that's called pushing my buttons. So I'd like for you to go through the list of questions here and pick out 1 or 2 of them. And imagine somebody came to you with this problem. I'm really nervous about speaking in public. I'm looking for a new car. I hate car shopping. I really hate my job. I think this city is too hot. I really dislike cooking. You are not very good at your job. I do not like the way you speak to me. I think the report you wrote is terrible. Your new haircut is not flattering. Think about somebody who came to you with one of those statements as a problem. And this exercise enables you to now take the techniques that we've learned, asking open questions in the 4 categories at the 3 levels of inquiry, and putting them to use. Write down some of the questions that you would ask for, pick one of these that really you feel engages you, and come up with a series of questions you would ask this person in order to engage with them, in order to help get to the root of the problem, and then in order to help them find a solution. Okay? Pause the video and then come back, and then we'll move forward. Okay, we're going to move on now to the specific application of asking questions for problem solving. Because if you're like me, most of what you do on a day-to-day basis is centered around problem solving. Being able to ask good questions makes you a better problem solver. It's critical to helping explore the problem and come up with really effective ideas. You want to use the principles of diagnostic inquiry to explore the problem and use confrontive inquiry to get to the root of the problem and make a connection with the client. So we're going to be using our 3 levels of inquiry here. Now, this is a procedure that I use all the time when I'm talking to somebody about a problem. Somebody comes to me with a problem, like one of those in the list that you just encountered, or think of one that you would be encountering on a regular basis at work. The first thing I would do is say, tell me about your problem. That's the level 1 inquiry. Just give me facts about it. And then I would use one of the techniques we talked about earlier, the repeating and mirroring. And I would say, so you say that, and I would essentially repeat what they just said back to them. So now I've made a connection. My goal in that is to get a yes. And then I would start along the lines of diagnostic inquiry. I would say, tell me more about the problem. Start getting them to talk about their take on the problem. Ask some questions, maybe some more diagnostic inquiry related questions to expand upon the problem itself and get more clarity. Help them think about some things that they haven't thought about before. And once I get to a point where I feel like we have sort of changed our perspective on the problem, I will say, so do you really mean, and then I will restate the problem in a way that clarifies it and gets to the root of the problem. So, do you really mean that? Let's say somebody came to me with a problem about, I really hate my job. My goal would be able to get to the point where I can say, do you really mean that you think that your skills are not a good match for the requirements of the job? Or do you really mean that you really can't connect with your boss, and you can't give your boss what they need, what they're looking for, that they're just so different from you that you really can't stand working for them anymore? Or does it mean that I really need to be making more money? Or does it mean that I'm really not motivated to do this type of work and I would be far more motivated to do other things? If I can get to the root of the problem and clarify it, then I can start pointing the client in a way, in a direction that will actually address the issue. When we start out with this first level, problem statements tend to be vague. So what you're trying to do is create clarity, create insight, and again, influence the way your client thinks about the problem. And in doing so, point them in a direction that'll really help us find that solution. Now, I have encountered, and this is where another value in taking the personality assessments, I have encountered that there are some personality barriers to being an effective questioner. So what I've done here is I've pulled up the DISC, which is one of the assessments as part of the DISC Plus, which focuses on behaviors. And this particular version of DISC uses 4 dimensions: decisive, interactive, stabilizing, and cautious. And it gives you a score of between 0 and 100 in each one of these, depending upon how you answer the questions. And if you've answered the questions honestly, it gives you really powerful insight into your unique strengths and blind spots. So again, this is something that I'm offering to anybody who makes a contribution. If you haven't already done so, I urge you to just contribute something to the site, and then you can take this and it'll really help you in your communication skills and make you a better questioner. And what I've noticed is that people with high D scores, they tend to be more impatient and they want to jump to the solution quickly. They view the problem as an obstacle. So if they're interacting with someone, they want to get past that problem quickly. And as a result, they tend to short circuit the questioning process. They might not want to go through the 3 levels of inquiry. They might not want to probe. They might just want to give a snap reaction to what they feel the problem is and come up with a solution quickly. So they tend to short circuit the questioning process. So that's a watch out for people who have high D scores. Also, people with low S scores, low stabilizing scores, they tend to be more competitive and like to go at a faster pace. And the thing about probing, it takes time. They might not want to take the time to probe. As we're going through this, I'm also thinking that the high C scores could have an impediment here, and that impediment is when you get now to the 3rd level of inquiry. If you've got some things that you rely on, some solutions that you rely on, and that are tried and true for you, you might want to direct somebody to one of those solutions rather than craft a solution that is the best for the client. And that's a real watch out for high Cs. So as we've been going through this, it's helped me think. So that's great. So again, I urge you to consider taking this. It'll make you a much better communicator. Okay, now we're headed into the last session of this particular video, which is the session on listening skills. The first, and we're going to lead off with an activity. How do you rate your listening ability? Listening, it's a skill that we can develop. Good communicators spend far more time listening than they do talking. So make an active choice to listen more. And what we're going to do to start out with is to help you baseline where you are in your listening skills. So these questions, I want you to go through the questionnaire in the student manual and rate yourself. 1, do you enjoy listening? Is it easy for you to listen with interest to a large variety of subjects? Do your friends seek you out to discuss a problem or decision when they need help? Does your attention usually stray towards other groups or people entering or leaving the room? Do you interrupt? Are you more apt to be thinking ahead to what you will say next rather than weighing what you are being told? Do you stop listening to everything when you strongly disagree with the speaker on one point? Do you assume or anticipate regarding the other person's views? Do you feel you can judge most people quite quickly before hearing them out? Do you generalize? For instance, all old people think this, all redheads think that, all college kids do this. Do you encourage others to elaborate or clarify points you have misunderstood? Do you listen to what is not said, such as the obvious omission? So I want you to pause the video and take this assessment and then score it like this. Give yourself 2 points if you answered yes for question 1. Give yourself 2 points if you answered no for questions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And give yourself 2 points if you answered yes to questions 2, 3, 11, and 12. So pause the video take the assessment and then come back, and then we'll take a look at what the results mean. Okay, so hopefully you've completed it and we can move forward. So here's how to interpret this. If you scored 20 or more, you have very strong natural communication skills. Use these to help others. If you score 10 to 18, you're in the average range. Identify where you're doing well and where you'd like to do better. And then if you've scored from 0 to 10, it's time to start learning. So use this quiz to help you set some very definitive learning goals with relation to your listening skills. So here are some tips to become a better listener. First of all, listen intentionally for people's names. If you need to, write that name down so you'll have it to refer to. Always listen with interest and try to get rid of your baseline assumptions. Listen without prejudice, without bias. And also listen for what is not said. It'll help you develop the questions that you're going to need to uncover some things that they're not telling you. So keep in mind that listening and hearing are not the same thing. When you hear something, the sound enters your eardrum, passes through your ear canal, and registers in your brain. This is something that you have in common with all animals on the earth that have ears, right? You know, your pet dog can listen or can hear you. Listening is what you do with that sound and how you interpret it. Listening involves your brain, your mental processes, your communication skills. So what we're focusing on here is effective listening. As a result, listening is hard work because you do have to use your brain a lot and also learn how to focus your attention. Also, it involves the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. This is called empathy. Active listening means that we try to understand things from the speaker's point of view. So empathy will enable you to do this. If you have strong empathy, this probably comes naturally for you already. This includes letting the speaker know that we are listening and that we've understood. A way to communicate that is by mirroring, one of the things that we learned in the previous session. This is not the same as hearing, which is a physical process. Active listening can be described as an attitude that leads to listening for shared understanding. Okay? If you're only listening for the spoken words themselves, you're missing a big chunk of the information because the way that people feel and how that is imparted in their communication gives full value to the message, because emotions and feelings are a big part of the situation. Responding to the speaker's feelings adds an extra dimension to listening. So again, empathy, showing that you can identify with their situation, being able to put yourself in their shoes and thinking, how would I feel were I in that situation? And connecting with them on that level. So to that end, let's start looking for some cues that will reveal maybe some of their emotions. What are their facial expressions, hand gestures, and posture telling us? If you can have noticed, I speak with my hands a lot, and as we're doing this, I'm moving my hands, and you might see that in the video if I've got them up high enough. Is their voice loud or shaky? Are they stressing certain points? Are they mumbling or having difficulty finding the words they want to say? All of these have an impact. When you're listening to someone, these techniques will show a speaker that you are paying attention and provided you are genuine in using them. So here are some of the things that we're going to use in order to show that we're paying attention. Make eye contact. Nod your head from time to time and lean into the conversation. Watch verbal cues. Respond to verbal cues with questions, like we learned in the previous session. Use summarizing statements. All of these will help show the person that you're listening to them and that they are actually communicating with you effectively. So here are some overall tips to becoming a better listener. First of all, make a decision to listen. I'm going to listen to this person free from bias, free from prejudice. I'm going to learn. They're going to inform me, and through that, I'm going to be able to help them better. Do not interrupt people. Let them talk. When you ask a question, let them answer. Pause and let them answer more. Keep your eyes focused on the speaker and your ears tuned to their voice. Carry a notebook or start a conversation file on your computer. Now, what does this mean? This means that when you have interactions, start recording your interactions in a notebook. This is what we talked about. This is what I asked. This is what I learned. Here are my insights. It's like a communication diary. This will make you a better listener and a better questioner and a better communicator and ultimately a better problem solver. Always ask questions in a manner that we've learned in the previous session. Ask questions throughout the conversation. And when you demonstrate good listening skills, they tend to be infectious. This will become a big part of your personal brand, your ability to listen. Also, keep in mind that you and the speaker, the person you're talking to, have biases, prejudices, beliefs, and things that will color their interpretation of what is said versus what is heard. So you start out with somebody saying something, and then whoever is speaking will add their biases to it. So body language, tone of voice, words, their choice of words, their expressions. And then you throw in the listener's bias, past experiences, their sort of internal maps of reality, their education, the assumptions that they've made, their emotional state, whatever distractions are going on. And then out of all this comes what is actually heard. So this is how what is said and what is heard can be very, very different things. Your goal as an effective communicator is to understand these better, understand the barriers they can create, and do your best to eliminate those barriers with the techniques that we've been talking about over the course of the training. So here's an activity that we will use to help you set up scenarios in which you can improve the situation by your actions. So in your workbook, what would you do if you were trying to talk to someone in each one of these scenarios? There are some ideas in there, and I want you to add to those ideas by, for each one of these, some ideas that would help you remove distractions and help you be able to listen to them better. So pause the video, go through each one of these, and then return and we'll move forward. Okay, hopefully you were able to come up with some really good ideas on this. Going through the list here, the one that I tend to have to deal with is the using emotionally charged words or statements. Sort of diffusing that emotion so that we can get to the actual, the real facts, the actual cause in sort of a non-biased, non-emotional way. Diffusing that, learning to diffuse emotions really helps with that. Because sometimes when someone's emotional, they really can't tell you what you need to know in order to help them out. So diffusing those emotions. So this is the end of the first 6 sessions. And I'm going to stop it right now. And I'm going to urge you to go through the workbook again, go through your answers. As you've come to the end of this, you might now have some additional insights. If you've got questions, or if you'd like to inform me, for instance, I'd like to know how long it took you to get through this training, because the video itself is a little over an hour. But in practice, this might take a full day for me to get through with a group, because of the different activities that we do and the different interactions that we have. And I'm thinking that it takes a lot less time if this is just a self-study, self-paced, one-on-one engagement. Let me know in the comments. Also, remember, if you're getting value from this training, subscribe to this channel, like the video, and share this video with the people who you think would get a lot of benefit out of it. And I will get back with you and rejoin you in the second training video, where we'll go through modules 7 through 12. So I will see you then.